Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Liz Brailsford, President and CEO of the World Affairs Council of Dallas-Fort Worth, and I'm really happy to see everyone here. Welcome to the 2023 Mike Rawlings Annual Lecture, Speaking to a Divided America, with U.S. Senator Joe Manchin in conversation with former Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings. I'd like to start off by thanking our founding donors of the Rawlings Endowed Lecture, the Billingsley Company, the Beck Group, Crow Holdings, Hall Group, Tim Headington and Headington Companies, KDC Real Estate Development, and Laura and Jack Matthews. Additional supporters of the Rawlings Lecture include Doug Chestnut, Jill and Michael Dardick, Frank Mihalopoulos, Herb Weitzman, and Abigail and Todd Williams. I'd also like to thank the Hotel Crescent Court for hosting us. We're always pleased to be here. And we also have some students with us today. We love to have students. Thank you so much. You work with our Global Young Leaders program, our education work, and I want to thank Richard and Linda Schaefer for making our student education program thrive. So thank you to the Schaefers. I also lastly want to thank our council's institutional partners, AT&T, Dallas Baptist University, Dallas College, Harwood International, Haynes & Boone, Lockheed Martin, NEC Corporation of America, PNC Bank, and Sidley Austin. If you are not a member of the World Affairs Council yet, please join us. It means a lot. You can check out all of our membership options on our website at dfwworld.org. We'd love to have you. I want to introduce our dear friend to the council, former mayor of Dallas, Mike Rawlings. Mike Rawlings was the 61st mayor of Dallas, the longest serving mayor in 57 years. Serving 8 years as mayor, he focused on spurring economic development in the long overlooked southern portion of Dallas, improving public education, combating poverty and domestic violence, developing parks, elevating the city's international profile, hooray for that, and turning Dallas into a top destination for artists, young professionals, families, and corporations. Mayor Rawlings won national and international awards. In 2016, he was selected as a Vital Voices Global Partnership honoree for his work to eradicate domestic violence. He was the 2017 recipient of the Joseph P. Riley Jr. Award for Leadership in Urban Design. And in 2018, he received the National Award for Local Arts Leadership from Americans for the Arts and the U.S. Conference of Mayors. He was an executive committee member for the U.S. Conference of Mayors and served as a member of the DFW International Airport Board of Directors. Public service has long been important to Mayor Rawlings. In the years before his 2011 election as mayor, he served as the chair of the Dallas Convention and Visitors Bureau, Visit Dallas, the city's homeless czar, winning the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness Award for Innovation, and the president of the Dallas Park Board. He currently serves as CIC Partners Vice Chairman and invests in and counsels several small to mid-sized companies. He is on the board of directors of the Hoblitzell Foundation and is a member of the Philosophical Society of Texas. So before we begin the conversation, please go on and enjoy your lunch, and we'll come back on and let you know. Thank you very much again for being here.
Liz, thank you for the nice introduction, and thank you again for those individuals that underwrote this lecture series. That was a great honor to get as I was leaving office, and we've tried to have folks that really are making a difference in the world today. And so I was so pleased to, when I heard that Senator Manchin would join us. I offered him this back in February, and he said, let's find a time, and he was a man of his word and did that. As you know, he was sworn into the United States Senate in 2010, the seat left vacant by Senator Byrd. He was born and raised in West Virginia, Farmington, and he spent 6 years as governor there as well before he became senator. In the Senate, he is the chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. He serves on appropriations. He serves on armed forces. He serves on Veterans Affairs. He was the chairman of the National Governors Association when he did that. Importantly, he's an ex-footballer at West Virginia, like I was at Boston College, so it's good to make sure that our heads weren't banged up too much in that process. And he's been married for over 50 years to Gail and has 3 children. Heather, I think, is here with us.
Heather's with us here.
There, Heather's right there with us. Thanks and welcome to Dallas there. It is such an honor to have a man that is at the center of so much today. Let's give it up for Senator Joe Manchin. Now, Senator Manchin, to understand anyone, I think you have to understand where they came from.
Yeah.
Okay? And a few people said, I've been to West Virginia once, or I've never been to West Virginia, or tell us, help us understand where you came from, a story
Sure.
or a sense of what your upbringing was all about.
No different than yours. Basically, we are who we are by where we were raised, how we were raised, and who raised us. That's it. So what neighborhood you might have been in, what little town you might have been, what big city, whatever. The people you were raised with never leaves you. And I've always said this, if I could go home and explain it, I can vote for it. If I can't go home and face the people I grew up with, because I was trying to make it something that's not, I couldn't vote for it. And I've always said this, my little town was maybe 500-600 people, maybe 700 at one time, but never over that. We never had a stoplight in the town. We had 2 caution lights. My first entree into politics was my dad was mayor, and he thought, well, our town, we got to be progressive. We've got to get, let's get with it. So he put a stoplight up. He thought that. We had 3 wrecks in one day. The next day, he took the stoplight down, put the caution light back up, and I understood. You had to be flexible. You have to be able to move and change. So,
your dad made a big difference in your life?
oh, my dad, my granddad, the women in my life, really, the ones, my grandmother and my mother and my aunts and all of them. But the family was very tight. There was a lot of us, and it was really something. But in my little town there, people in West Virginia, they're always hard workers. They're the most beautiful people you've ever been around. A West Virginian, if you ever drove through our state, and you'd ask for directions, they probably have said, oh, heck, just follow me and I'll take you there. Okay, if your car broke down, you can always tell, they'll jump under your car and start working on it for you. That's just the way they are, okay? And I've always said this, a West Virginian can shake your hand, look in your eyes, and see your soul. You can't, that's all they've got. Their gut that's who they are. Not a lot of material wealth. But basically, so I tell people I was born as a privileged child. I was raised as a privileged child. So I guess, when we talk about privileges, we talk about big fancy neighborhoods. Well, I was raised between the railroad tracks and the creek. And they talk about big fancy homes, and I was raised really kind of a 3-room garage apartment. And they said, why do you think you were privileged? I said, I had unconditional love. There wasn't a day in my life that I knew, no matter how bad I screwed up, that I had someone that was with me and it was unconditional. My grandfather, I got in trouble one time. I'll never forget this. I said, hey, Papa, are you with me? He says, honey, I'll be with you until your chest hurts.
That's great.
Now, you don't get any closer than that.
Now, your papa, was he Italian?
Yeah.
Was it Mancini?
As Mancina was, I think, what we know, but then my mother was full Czechoslovakian. She was from Ostrava, Czechoslovakia. So I had all Eastern European, and they expect everybody had to work. Papa had a grocery store, Dad had a furniture store. And you started out 9, 10 years old in the grocery store. And I'll never forget, I used to try to get out of work all the time. And because at 9, 10, 11 years old, you have all your buddies going to play ball or going to swimming or something. So I said, hey, Papa, and they never would let me. He said, no. I said, no, you got to work. So then I said, I got him because he loved football. And I said, hey, Papa, can I get off today? I want to go lift weights and get strong so I can play football. I had to be maybe 12 years old. And he was cutting chickens on, I can still see it to this day. He was cutting chickens on the big old, he had a big butcher block. And he says, honey, he called everybody honey. He says, honey, show me a man that lifts dumbbells and I'll show you a dumbbell. He said, you want to get strong and tough, go back in the warehouse. Make something happen. Be productive if you want to lift something. So there's no wasted motion. Everything was supposed to be no work, no eat. Everybody, I understood all that.
Now, those folks that are your neighbors in West Virginia, let's talk about the subject that we want to talk about today. Are these folks a lot different than the folks in Brooklyn and San Francisco and the south side of Chicago, or is that exaggerated, the difference, or are we all the same? Tell me about, as you look at America.
We are. I mean, look at us. How do we become what we are? How do we become the hope of the world and the superpower of the world? What's our mission as being a defender of democracy and freedoms around the world? What's our purpose of being involved in trying to support Ukraine, where they can defeat an aggression of the communist country, and stand? Some people say we shouldn't be doing that, and I says, if not for that, who are we? I mean, the whole world is depending on
So you're
us.
saying everybody you think believes that?
I think everyone basically, we all, it's family, it's the ability to take care of your family, having a job, and being able to live a quality of life. I don't, everybody talks about, and I hear so much this new of wokeness and all of these things they're talking about. The only thing I can tell you is I think that every American and every one of us in a position to defend the right of every American to have an opportunity to live a quality life. What sometimes you have the minority in certain situations in society that want that to be mainstream and thinking, well, you should accept that. I'm going to protect that. Don't make me believe that that has to be mainstream in a minority, but I'm going to protect every minority I possibly can to give a quality of life. I just don't think it should be pushed into mainstream. I've just been pretty straightforward.
Why does it feel so extreme that everybody's at each other's throats? So I mean, does
you're
it feel that
hearing-
way in Washington?
You're
It must
hearing,
feel that way.
yeah. If I get this question all the time, what's going on with Washington? Why is it so divided? It's divided because politicians are getting rewarded for bad behavior. It's just radical. You can say anything you want about someone. There was always a decorum and civility. And, not just perfect situation we're in, most current situation, the dress code.
Explain. A few people probably don't know what you're
The dress code right now is that basically we thought for 234 years that there was a dress code and decorum in the U.S. Senate, you would think. I think there still is a dress code when you go into a court. I don't think a judge is going to let you come in if you just got off of the tennis court or you just got out of the gym. That's not going to happen. So there's certain decorums in certain areas. Those has always been a decorum in the United States Senate. Now, the House of Representatives, Congress, has rules. I mean, they're very strict. The Senate never thought, because it was supposed to be more of a genteel type of environment and supposed to be above all of that. And just a certain civility would honor the decorum, and that was fine until this past week. John Fetterman, who got elected from Pennsylvania, is a senator, and I always said this, I never get involved in anybody's race in another state. Whoever you send from Texas, I'm going to work with them as they're my best friends. I'm going to do everything I can to try to find a way to work with them. So I never have gotten involved that way. So John and our politics are different, even though we're associated with the same Democratic caucus. But with that being said, when he dressed the way he did, I went over and said, John, I respect you as a senator. I don't respect you not respecting the decorum of the Senate. So I'm going to do everything I can to prevent this from happening. So I wrote a resolution. I have signatures on Dems and Republicans both. And we're going to see if we can work through this because we never had anything in writing. And what happened is someone says, the Sergeant of Arms should basically enforce the rules of the Senate. And someone says, we don't have any written rules. For 234 years, we never needed a written rule. We all knew what professional attire was. Then it happened. So now we're going to have to write the rules, and the Sergeant of Arms and the parliamentarian will enforce them. So those type of things can happen, and if what happens, some people want to make a big deal out of it. And most politicians want to fundraise off of everything that's contradictory. This is outrageous, whether it be January 6th. And the only thing I'm going to tell you about what's happening, the fair elections can't be the only ones I win. It just can't be. And the rule of law is for you and not me. Can't be. We've got to get back to say, listen, all of us have certain rules and laws that we have to live by, but if you want to know why we're different, we do have the rule of law. We basically are different than any place else in the world. The Senate's the most unusual body, a governing body. There's nothing like us. It was an experiment 234 years ago when it was first enacted in 1789, and it's still an experiment. And democracy is not easy, But our founding fathers never, ever thought that we would have this type of activity
within.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk to these extremes, whether they're citizens, the media, other elected officials, how do you go into that?
Mike, let's go back to this. If you go to work every day and someone's trying to get you defeated, or not defeated, someone's trying to get you fired. If you go to work every day and your coworker's trying to get you fired, working behind you, making you look bad, this and that, that's going to come to a head, right?
Yeah.
Sooner or later it will. If you come from the coal mining towns, it comes to a head very quick, and it's over very quick. Okay, but that's just the way it is. So I'm thinking, right now, if you're a Republican in the Republican caucus and a Democrat's running, and that could be a good friend of yours, you're expected to give a check to whoever's going to run against them. And then the leadership of the Republican, and this happens to a Democrat too. So if a Democrat's over here, they're expecting me to give a check to whoever's running against Republicans. And I told, when I first got there, Harry Reid asked me, he said, we'll do this. And I said, Harry, first of all, where I come from, if you try to get me fired every day, I'm going to have a conversation with you and it's not going to be good. And we're going to get through this because I'm not going to do that. And I says, there's no way human nature would tell me, you're up for an election, I'm against you, even though I don't even know the person running against you. They went and recruited somebody to run against you as a Republican. I'm a Democrat, I'm supposed to give them a check to beat you. Then they might want me to come to your state and campaign against you. And then on Monday, we go back to the Senate, and I said, hey, John, can we work together and do an amendment together? I don't think that works that way. Human nature says, hell no, we're not going to do that. I'm not for, you're out there trying to beat me every day. Now you want me to work with you? No, I'm not going to do it. So it got divided. We never used to do that. So I tried to pass a piece of legislation of an ethics law. It'd be an ethical violation for a sitting senator to campaign against another sitting senator. Stay out of the elections, okay? Let the people back home decide who they want to send, because we have to keep a decorum. No different than when Joe Biden, basically during his campaign, called the Saudi king and the Saudi regime pariahs. You can't do that and expect to sit down and work with them. We need to work with these people, whether we agree or not. You can't push people away and think, okay, it's just a politics, you understand that. Nah, cultures don't, certain cultures don't.
But they're getting rewarded for that behavior, to your point.
The bad behavior is oh yeah, I like that. And what happens is you got the media pushing, you got different social media, 5 social media platforms, and then you got cable news on top of that.
Yeah.
And everything else coming at you. I don't know how anyone determines what the facts are anymore.
Let's talk about how you approach who you are from a political standpoint, because you've called yourself a conservative Democrat. I've seen things that people called you a wild liberal, okay? Other people,
I want to meet that person.
Okay. I know, but I saw it, he's a wild liberal.
Oh, yeah.
We got, some people see you as a progress stopper because you supported having the filibuster was okay.
Without the filibuster, you lose democracy. It's over.
Yeah, a big spender. Some people call you that because you supported Biden's law on the funding mechanism that he just came up with.
I supported all Trump's.
Yeah? What's your North Star politically, and how do you, when an issue comes in front of you, how do you kind of go to your little book and say where I stand
Let me
on
just say this. As an American, every one of us here should pray that your president succeeds every day, whether you like him or not, whether you voted for him or not, whether it's your own party. If the president does well, the government does well, should do well, and our country should do well. We all prosper. So if I'm in a position to help, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Barack Obama, whether it's going to be Joe Biden, no matter who it is, I'm going to do everything I can to help them be successful. But then you got to be able to speak truth to power too. When you see it going down a path that, wait a minute, we've tried that before. That doesn't make any sense at all. I've tried it before and it didn't work. Why are we doing it again? So you want to be able to speak truth to power. And when you're sitting in the White House in the Oval Office, and I'll give you a perfect example on the BBB, the Big Build Back Better, which was a $6 trillion bill, which would have thrown us into not only a recession, probably a deep depression. And the president's sitting there, and just you two are sitting in the most powerful office in the world, most powerful economy and the most powerful military, and they grab you by the arm, they go like this, your country needs you. We need you. And you're thinking, oh, how do I answer this one? And then you go back and say, Mr. President, the country needs you too. We're all in this together. And this is not going to work. And then you try to have
You were the one vote
one vote
that stopped him.
One vote. And all the Democrats got mad and thought, well, why you're killing this? And I says, how I got to that point, I tried for 8 months and got the living crap beat out of me. I couldn't get there. I finally told him, I said, you know, Mr. President, you and I are the same vintage. We're a little difference in age, but we're in the same vintage. And I said, I remember John Kennedy as a little boy watching television in 1960 with my mother and watching him give an inaugural speech saying, ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. And I said, sir, if we pass this piece of legislation, which you say is your marquee legislation, we're changing the psychic of this nation to how much more can my country do for me? And I says, I wasn't raised that way. I didn't sign up for this, and I can't vote for it. You can put a gun to my head and shoot me. I could care less. I'm not going to vote for it. And I mean, all hell broke loose then. Yeah. So that killed that bill. And that was the dreams of every social reform and social realignment. Then 3 months later, the Ukraine war started. They said, well, why did Manchin roll over and do the Inflation Reduction Act? Well, let me tell you why. We had Putin declared war on an aggression on Ukraine. Putin basically used energy as a weapon against our allies in Europe. We weren't energy secure. We couldn't help them. We weren't producing LNG to any extent we can give them any relief. And we were in trouble here. This administration kept going further left on renewables. I think we all have a responsibility to the environment, but you got to find a balance. You cannot run this country and be the superpower of the world unless you're energy secured. You can't be energy secured unless you're producing oil, better and cleaner and more of it, gas, better and cleaner, and using all of your fossil in the most responsible way, while you could be investing in the new technologies of the future, which is going to be hydrogen, small modular reactors, geothermal, all the things that we know we can do. So you can walk and chew gum in America and succeed. So as I'm speaking to you all right now, we're producing more energy in America today than we ever have. We've broken all records. 4.6 billion barrels of oil, 37 trillion cubic feet of gas, 13.5 billion cubic feet of LNG being exported on a daily basis, going to 20. We're doing more than we've ever done. And we're investing, and we got more investments coming to the country. That was all because of the IRA. Mm-hmm. What happened is how we passed the IRA, it was only passed with Democrat votes. So my Republican...
But you supported that one.
I wrote it.
Yeah, right.
I did more than support it. I wrote the whole darn energy thing, and then the president comes out and they're selling it as an environmental bill. It was basically an energy security bill. We prevented any one side taking advantage of the other. You cannot go to the Gulf of Mexico and basically put windmills up unless we're extracting the oil and gas we have under our feet. They're all bound. They're hooked together. They can't do one without the other. They can't go on BLM lands and do all this they want to, these thousands of acres of wind farms and solar farms, unless we're extracting the minerals. And we can't be totally dependent on China for all the critical minerals that are needed for our computer chips and for our batteries and everything else, and unless you're coming back here.
You're a common sense guy. You've talked about common sense. Mm-hmm. So let's start getting into it. You started talking about energy. What do you say to the global warming folks in that process?
We've reduced our emissions more than any developed nation in the world, the United States. Can we do more? Absolutely. You cannot eliminate your way to a cleaner environment. You can innovate it, You can innovate your way to cleaner environments. You can't eliminate.
What do you think
can't-
about nuclear?
I'm all for nuclear. We say the nuclear plants. And the nuclear plants was going down because people weren't supporting nuclear, but nuclear was being produced in states we call them merchant markets. That means they're on the block every minute of every day selling commodities, okay? You can't, nuclear is too expensive for that, and you got to run them. And what happens is wind and solar is so much cheaper now because we've developed it. So, but it's intermittent power. You need 24/7. People says, well, I don't want that. And I said, no problem. I said, I'd be happy to deliver that for you. Tell me what 5 hours of the day you want your energy. Yeah. I'll give you exactly what you want. But it doesn't work that way. So you've got to be practical. We're going to get to a carbonless society. When? I'm not sure. Can it be by 2050? Maybe. The bottom line is, what do you do until you get there? Do you stop? Do you let your economy collapse? Do you let your defenses collapse where you can't defend yourself? There's going to be, in these young people, fusion is going to be the energy of the future. Fusion will be the energy of the future. It's basically capturing the energy of the sun. And we do that, and right now we have 37 countries working in Provence, France, developing this new technology. When they're able to perfect that, it'll be a game changer in the world. It won't be fighting over energy. But we've been fighting over energy since humankind, whether it's fire and ever since fire was developed until where we are today. Yeah. So energy is going to be a main player, and it still is right now.
Another tough issue, Mr. Common Sense. Wow, there seems to be waves now, just in the last week or so, of Venezuelans coming into the United States.
The Democrats are so wrong on immigration.
Okay, so tell me what we need to do.
Well, I was on the phone all morning with some of my colleagues, Republican Democrats. First of all, I was talking to Ali Mayorkas 2 days ago, and that was the day before they came out with this new Venezuelan, allowing anyone who came here from Venezuela before July to have a visa worker permit. The only thing I've said about it, most of the people coming for asylum are not coming for asylum. It's the only vehicle they have to get a foot on the shore, and they're here. Then we have to adjudicate them. That means we don't have enough judges. So they get sent in different places. They say, well, who do you have? Well, we have a cousin up here. We have a family member here. So they send them to New York. They tell you where they want to go. First of all, you've got to secure the border. I told Donald Trump one time, I said, he kept saying Mexico is going to pay and pay. That never happened. I said, listen, I think I got it figured out. Why don't you tell Mexico that if they'll just secure their southern border, which is only 120 miles, they can choke it off. They can secure it. We can deal with Mexico, okay? But they can stop all the southern migration. And he said, oh, I like that. And then something happened, he didn't do it, so we talked more. But anyway, we have got to secure. You cannot have a nation as the United States of America without secured borders, know who's coming and why they're coming. All of us, somebody came before us.
What do we do?
Well, you got to secure the border. Democrats have to understand you've got to secure it. Republicans have to understand there's 12, 15 million people here. You can't gather them up and throw them out. Yeah. So they want nothing. Anyone that came here illegally, the hardcore right believes that's amnesty. Get rid of them. I said, wait a minute, guys. I says, we had a 2013 piece of legislation that said anybody that's in this country illegally has 30, 60, 90 days to go to the courthouse, U.S. courthouse. You go into the queue. You pay a fine for coming here illegally. I think it's $750 back then. And then what you do, you get in that queue. You're going to work, you're going to pay your taxes, you're going to be a productive citizen, which most of them have been. If you ever go to our military, if you want to know about immigration, go to watch our military. I just came back from San Diego, and we had 3 of our aircrafts, or 3 of our Nimitz-class aircraft. Most of these are kids of Puerto Ricans. We've got Mexicans. We've got a little bit of everything. They're in our military, okay? And then we had dreamers. These kids didn't know how they got here. They come here as babies. Someone carried them across the border. They ought to have a pathway forward. They're educated. They want to be productive. If we would do that, now we have them coming, so many of them have come illegally. What do you do with everybody's here, waiting to be adjudicated? It could be 2, 3, 4 years before they ever get a court hearing. And after that, we might not find half of them if they don't show up. Then you got really problems. So I've said this. I'd shut down this border as tight as we possibly could. I would put the wall up. I would use all the technology we had to shut the border. There'd be a proper ports of entry. But with that, what we have now, then basically I have temporary worker visas, and I make every state responsible. Right now, we're thinking the federal government can do everything for you. We can't do it. We don't have the personnel. We don't have the ability to do it. So that's what you're seeing, a hodgepodge and how bad it is. But if Texas says, I need 200,000 workers, I need 200,000, then Texas is going to be responsible for those 200,000 being placed in areas that we're going to have support. You're going to integrate them into society. And how I came to, I've been thinking about this. I heard stories growing up of my great-grandparents bringing my grandparents to this country, both from Italy and Czechoslovakia. And they had either a cousin or a friend or a family member that was already located. So they had a place. They would go from Ellis Island down to Pittsburgh into West Virginia, and then they would go to Uncle John. They called him Uncle John, a farm he had. They stayed there for a month or two. He'd explain to them. They learn enough English. They'd understand the monetary system. They'd get a job in the coal mines, and that's how it did. So right now, we're going to have states responsible. We don't have that ties that we had before, or that family reach that we had before, but we have still the ability to hold states responsible for integrating, bringing people in, making sure they have living conditions. Yeah. And if you can't place them, then we don't need. We've got to have a system that works. And we built this country on immigrants, and we're going to remain the strongest power of the world if we have it.
So that all costs money. You've been a fiscal conservative. How do you...
No, that doesn't cost money. If you get me enough young people in working age, it'll help me with Social Security. Okay. It'll help me with Medicare. They'll pay their FICA taxes. We'll have everyone paying into it. The biggest problem we have now, we don't have enough people paying into the social services that we've already guaranteed. I need more influx. I can do one or two things. Either work it on deficit financing, or I can get people paying into it to get cash flow.
What do you do with the situation we've got right now?
Well, we're in big trouble right now because basically if you have any family members on Social Security right now that's receiving a check, and I'm going to use it hypothetically, if they're receiving a $1,000 a month check, and this is their lifeblood like it is in most rural areas, in 6 to 8 years, if we don't do anything to change the system that we have, that check will be $800 and he or she won't know what happened. It's automatic reduction. It's basically we lose solvency in our cash flow. And that's what we want. We're not standing up to that. So Mitt Romney and I have a bill called the Trust Act. We look at all our trust funds and have to basically do bicameral, bipartisan, work together and come up with different ideas of how we change it. I've had people come to me and says, listen, my father was one. He said, Joe, he says, they give me a cost of living check on my COLA, on my Social Security. He says, I don't need, why are they doing that? He said, I don't need that. He said, now Aunt Mary and Aunt Fran need it, but I don't need it. So basically we could do things that could save Social Security and making sure that basically the people are above.
But no one wants to talk about it.
They don't want to talk about it because it's going to make someone mad. Yeah. And you might lose a vote. Well, you might save society. Yeah. That's a small price to pay. I've never looked at politics and said, oh, this is not the best job I've ever had, gang. I've had much better jobs.
These are tough issues.
Yeah, these are tough issues that nobody wants to talk about.
One issue that's very, very tough, and I've heard you be criticized on both sides, is the gun issue, okay? You know, Manchin's a gun lover. Manchin's a gun hater. You know, how do we deal with
I come from West Virginia. If you don't have a gun when you get there, we'll give you one. That's just the way it is, okay? So my dad wasn't a gun person. No, they were just hard workers. But I was in a community in a little town of 500-600 people, and we had a sportsman's club. And all the men, mostly minors, would take their time to teach us what we call gun sense, gun etiquette. And we all learned that basically it was pretty special. It was a really privilege to have the ability to use a gun, to go hunting, shooting, this and that. So we learned all the safety factors. So I said this, it's really the law-abiding gun owners of America that aren't standing up defending their right to have that gun. They're allowing the extremes to say, oh, you're taking my right away. Well, gee, many Christmas.
So the middle is not speaking up about how to do it right.
The middle is not speaking up about anything because they don't want to be drug into the extremes, and they don't want to be targeted by the extremes. And I know exactly where they're coming from because here I am in the middle getting hit by both sides. And I've just said, they come to me and it was a 50-50 Senate. Now, all of you all have lived through historical times in our country. We've never had a Senate split down the middle, 50-50 for 2 years. It's been split for a month or two, maybe 6 months, but then someone would flip over to another, and the Democrat or Republican, give them the majority. This time we didn't. Everyone stayed where they were. I evaluated that whole situation, and as far right as the extreme was going there, and I'm already stuck on this one here, going from one kettle to the next kettle, and they're both pretty hot, didn't make any sense to me, so I just stayed right where I was and fought it from there. So they come to me and says, how come one person has so much power? I said, trust me, I didn't run for this. I didn't go out and lobby for it. I just said, listen, guys, I have been voting the same way I've been voting for 40 years. I've never changed. And now all of a sudden, you all wanted to make sure that Mitch McConnell, when Donald Trump was beating him up every day, saved the filibuster. If you lose the filibuster, we lose democracy, and we'll lose our country. And you know what? Mitch stood strong. I commend him for that. And Republicans fought to save the filibuster. And there were 33 Democrats that signed a letter in 2018, 2019. Please save it. They saved it. As soon as the Democrats got it, they want to get rid of it. And I said, wait a minute. You're all upset because I won't vote with you? I never changed. Why did you all change? You were this way then, now you're this way now. So they know they couldn't pressure me. They've tried. And people say, well, how do you take the pressure? The easiest way to take pressure is be who you are. The hardest pressure you're ever going to have in life is trying to change who you are to be part of something that you're not or something you don't believe in. When you get trying to adjust and make yourself believe.
Authenticity.
It's just basically, people say, what is it? I said, just be who you are. I don't have to think about why I voted a certain way. I know exactly. It goes right back to Farmington, the way I was raised. I know exactly. Because I can go look them in the eye, and I can tell them exactly what I'm for. Now, my state has switched completely from a Democratic state. We're the last southern state. We're the northernmost southern state in the nation. We're on the Mason-Dixon line. Most of the South, most of this, Texas was all Democrats at one time. Most of all the South was that. It's the civil rights, all the different things that change. It basically changed the social values. When social values change, your politics changed. Well, my state flipped in 10 years quicker than any place in the world. We are now the reddest state. We were the bluest state, and when I was governor from 2004 up to right 2010, the bluest state, now we're the reddest state. How did it happen? Governments start basically getting in and trying to change your social values. I'm not going to change how you believe on abortion. You're going to be what you are. I want to give you a right. I says, why can't we just keep Roe v. Wade? 50 years of precedented law. Why can't we codify it? We learned how to navigate it. It's not good enough for the pro-life. It's not good enough for pro-choice. But it was able to navigate in a very divided country. Just common sense things. We're basically making you pick a side. The only side you should pick is the side you're on, which is America's side. The Republican side or Democrat side shouldn't change who you are as an American. And that's what's happening now. They're pushing you and forcing you. People, you are not as divided. Washington has made a business out of dividing you to pick a side.
Well put. Well put. So you're stuck in the middle.
I'm not stuck. I'm fine.
Okay, but you got to make a decision here, though, okay?
I'll make it.
All right, and so I'm not asking you to say what you're going to do.
I'm not ready today.
Okay, I'm not. I know that. But how are you going to approach this? Do you run for Senate? Do you run for president? Do you get off the track? How do you approach a decision like this for you?
I'm more concerned about my country than I've ever been before. I am more concerned. And I've said this, and a couple of you I talked to beforehand, I've said this. I keep thinking about the United States of America, who we are and how we become who we are. How do we make it through all the different turmoils and the wars, the trials and tribulations, and be the country we are today? There's no one willing to take our place. There's not another country willing to say, as soon as we push the United States off of being on that throne, we're ready to take over. There'll never be a more benevolent country than we are, a more caring country. We feed the world when they need fed. We try to cure and heal the world when they need healed. We're always there for them. No one's going to take that place. Now, there's other countries that want to take it for different power struggles, to have more control of certain things, and it's more of a power thing. Ours is kind of a balance of both. So how do you make that decision? Right now, how do I make sure that the middle has a voice? How do I make sure that people are saying, wait a minute, I'm not going to vote for either side right now until you move off of your extremes. Right now, no one's speaking up about that. So if I can be a voice to say, no, we've got a pretty strong middle. We've got people to support people in the middle. You understand how much money is...
So you're seeing your raison d'etre is representing that middle right now.
That's where I am. That's where I'm comfortable. That's what I've always done. I've always, you can still have a D by your name, an R by your name, or you can have an I by your name, however you want, whatever you're comfortable with. But you don't have to be pulled to the extremes. And anybody who speaks up now, so on both sides, you can be like, they're afraid of getting primaried. You can be responsible and reasonable, but then you get primaried from your own side because you weren't as extreme as they want you to be, or you weren't as extreme liberal or extreme conservative. Common sense is common sense. You're not going to get everything, and democracy is basically we negotiate. It's called the most deliberate body in the world. Well, deliberation means you got to talk. Yeah.
So you're not going to tell us what you're going to do. When are you going to do it? Is it after
before
the
the
first
end of the
year?
year?
Before the end of the year.
Yeah, I'll do something before. I think I need to, for my own peace of mind right now, because I'm getting into the point where I'm seeing everything divided more. It looks right now, if you were a betting person, that if there was a primary, within a short period of time, you would probably have Joe Biden and Donald Trump as your two main people that would be running. And my daughter Heather has worked on this so much, and we've looked at the business model, and I could not believe what she's been able to uncover for me. But when you think about it, if you take both sides, the Democrats maybe, the Republicans, maybe 10 million vote in the primary, Democrats maybe 8 or 10 million. So it's about 20 million people that are voting to pick two people that 150 or 160 million people will have an opportunity to vote for. That's it. You had no other choice. Whatever the very small minority of 20 million people, 10 on each side, says, here's your two. Take them or leave them. What you got? Then it makes you pick a side. So can we put some pressure? Is there somebody in the middle that can put pressure?
Well, we're working. That's how I met you, through No Labels.
Exactly.
And so there are different programs in place in that. Hey, let's open it up for some questions. Enough of me. Back there.
Just raise your hand, they'll bring a mic to you.
Senator, I'm Frank Heitken, and I appreciate your comments. One thing I'd like to also get your thoughts on is the decision of Senator Tuberville to block hundreds of confirmations for flag officers
Sure.
and other military officials that has really done more damage and threatened to set back our security more than anything I've seen in the last 20 or 30 years. What can be done to talk some sense into that man?
First of all, Tom Tuberville is a friend of mine. I consider all 99 senators to be my friend because I try to befriend them as soon as they get there, so we have a good working relationship. He and I have a lot in common. He's an old football player, a coach from Auburn, and we had a lot to talk about. And so when this all happened, here's what Tom Tuberville wanted. He felt that the military, since 1984, the abortion issue in the military has always been only in case of incest, rape, and life of the mother would they pay, okay? So that was in 1984, and Joe Biden voted for that in 1984. So Tom wanted to go back to that, and I said, Tom, fine, I'm fine with that. I'll vote with you if it'll take your hold off. I'll support you if it'll take the hold off, because I thought it's very detrimental to our country right now. So we talked about that, but then what happened is when Roe v. Wade had been basically repealed, and then he had a situation to where I don't like the new authority that they put in, the new programs that the military says now what we will do is, since some of the states we have our bases in are not providing those types of services, we'll pay for a female soldier to go wherever she can to get the services she needs, and we'll pay for her leave and for her going, okay, and getting the procedures. He felt that wasn't the situation. That should be repealed. So I understand, and that's the power of one. We've been almost showing that now. The power of a senator. Each senator has the power to almost shut it down, and that's what you're seeing, because they were thinking, our founding fathers were thinking that these are people who should be of high esteem, high values, and respected in their own rights, representing the parts of the country they come from, would never act such as that. There'd be a proper way to cure this. Well, Tommy wanted to vote. I thought he should have gotten a vote. And I thought Schumer should have given him that vote. And I've gone to Schumer and says, can we work this out to where Coach can have a vote on basically going back to the 1984 laws that we worked under, which is what the Department of Defense had always lived by. But then Coach, as I'm understanding, his staff told my staff, no, he wants to repeal the procedure they have now, which is basically paying for the travel. He wants that repealed first, then a vote. I said, Tom, you're not going to get both. I said, you can get one. I can fight for you to get one. And I would say, take the one to try to take it back to 84. If you win that one, you've already negated the procedures they're working with right now. And I'm saying that's what's happening. They didn't, his staff and them, they didn't accept that.
Are we going to resolve it, do you think?
The Republicans have to resolve this. If not, we're going to change the rules to where one person cannot, anything that would be detrimental to the defense of our nation or to our economy cannot hold at longer than a certain period of time. I think that's what will eventually come. But this has gone too far. It really has.
Back there, grab.
If you were czar of the United States for 12 hours, what are the first 3 things you would do?
Well, let me just give you the greatest problems I think we have. First of all, the finances of our country. You cannot, this morning we were $33 trillion, $70 billion of debt. $33 trillion, $70 billion. I get it every morning. It's my wake-up call. It's my morning sick call. It tells me what the finances of the country and what our debt is. So the first thing you do is you get your finances. You got to get you a tax system that works, that's fair and equitable, and you live within your means. So I would change that to some sort of a balanced budget amendment to where we'd have to stay within. States have to do it, you have to do it, businesses do it, everybody does it. You live within your means. We've got to. We don't have anything that basically an alarm that goes off as far as when we hit our stress, stress testing and things of that sort. I'm putting a big emphasis on finances. I'm going to tell you why. Mike Mullen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, when I first got there in 2011, I'm on Armed Services Committee. I had been governor for 2 terms before that. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to learn a lot about what's going on geopolitical around the world. So I start studying this and that and thinking, well, where's our biggest challenges? Is it going to be China? Is it going to be Russia? Is it a combination of Iran and the Middle East disruption, on and on and on? And the first thing, Mike Mullen, we asked him the question, what's the greatest threat? He says the debt of the nation will take us down. We'll go down first. It won't be another nation overtaking us. It won't be another military overrunning us. We'll take ourselves down. So that's why I'm putting so much emphasis on that. Next of all, I would basically have a total border shutdown. I would shut the border down immediately. And next of all, I would put in, when I say border shutdown, so we could have a process of immigration that works and builds upon what we build upon, why we have the country we have. Bring the immigration, basically what we can handle and what we can integrate into our system, and then get rid of the riffraff that came in under that wave. We can send our ICE agents to get those people out. once we're not chasing the good people that came for the right reason. So the good people will say, they'll sign up. The bad people won't. We can find them. So that has to be done.
You get a third wish.
Well, there's a lot of wishes, but I'm saying if you got that and you got your border secured there, and then having energy security. We can't maintain this country unless I can produce the energy you want. I can't give you what you want unless we have the ability to defend ourselves. I can't defend ourselves unless we're not dependent on foreign supply chains. And I'm just not talking oil and gas and all this and the renewables and all this new development. I'm talking about the chips and the rare earth minerals and everything that we take that runs our country, runs our cars, runs our homes, our computers. We've got, I think the best way, cut the supply chain for the building blocks of America coming from other areas that aren't with our values. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea is never going to. So if you're depending on those parts of the world to do what we do every day and what we need for our life, we're going to be in trouble.
Talk about China a little bit. You mentioned it. You
got to do business with China.
I'm
not cutting China out. I'm just not going to be relying on China to run my vehicles and run our space program or run our military or that. I'm just not going to depend on countries that don't have our values.
Got it. Question right here.
Senator, what's your view with respect to Taiwan? I feel that it's only a matter of time before the Chinese probably blockade and such. How do we prepare for that? How do we respond to that?
Well, you can look at Taiwan as if kind of a precursor of Hong Kong being a precursor to Taiwan. Not a whole lot. We were upset about it. We talked a lot about it, but not a whole lot was done from that, and not a whole lot of repercussions been done since then. Okay? Taiwan's a whole different thing. The United States of America has a one China policy. That means we only recognize China, CCP. We don't recognize Taiwan, but yet the president says we will fight and defend Taiwan. We've got to be very clear. If that's the case, then we should have a two-China policy, and Taiwan is not part of the mainland China or CCP, and we're going to defend them. So until that's clear, it's going to be hard for us to justify how the rest of the world is going to come and help us like they have in Ukraine. Ukraine was a very easy one for us to get our allies, and I think President Biden's done a good job of securing the allies' support. I don't know if that would be the same, and that concerns me there. We got building blocks. I mean, some of the most sophisticated chips are done there in Taiwan, and we have a great relationship with Taiwan, and we're helping them defend themselves. And I don't think, Xi Jinping's been watching everything we've done. If you look at basically what gave Putin the emphasis to do what he did in Ukraine basically came from 2014 with Crimea. We never raised a finger. And also in Syria, they crossed the line, used chemical weapons on their people, and we said, that's a red line, we're coming after you. We never did a thing. These type of strong bosses, these autocrats, and they only understand one thing: who's the strongest guy on the block? And if you don't hit back, they'll keep smacking at you. And you got to hit them hard. And I know it can be a little bit brutal. We got people we have people, and thank God in America, know what to do. Just let us do it.
Question back there, far back.
I like what you said about energy. My wife and I are substantial investors in a lithium project here in North America. But my question really goes to the objective of the government was to create inflation. And the way they did it took more monetarization to bring about the inflation without creating enough living wage jobs for people to have discretionary spending, which I think would have been the backbone of the economy, where people the money takes traction, and then it results in velocity. Are you doing things, and we talked earlier, we're of like mind, are you advocating things that bring about more living wage jobs for the American people?
Well, the bottom line is that's where innovation comes in. We can, but I got to be honest with you, our education system is not what it used to be. Okay? We're dumbing down. We're not basically lifting people up. And I'm really concerned. And you got people now picking where's the best school district to live into, if you're going to have private education because you're not getting public education. I'll give you a scenario that I never knew before, and I was in a quorum many years ago, and I'm thinking, they said, when were you born? You tell them when you're born. If you went to school, grade school, high school, in the 50s and 60s, you probably got the best education in America that America's ever offered. I says, why? And they said, well, you probably had the best teachers. And I said, why? And they said, well, most of them were probably women. I said, really? You know, I'm thinking, yep, you're right. They said, they didn't have many job opportunities back then. They had healthcare, education, as most females would work back in the 50s and 60s. And it was mostly secondary income, so they didn't get paid very much. Okay? We continued that on to the present, and we're still not paying what we should be paying, because basically, when the smartest and brightest in education was able to find other avenues of work that would pay them for their value, we never lifted up and competed back. So we got what we got. When are we going to kick in? That's what we should be asking. When are we going to demand more from education? That scares the Jesus out of me right now. Because, I mean, if you go in these classrooms in today and you see the proficiencies from every state, we're not one in anything. Back after World War II and the GI Bill and what we did, how we built America, we were the rest of the world came after us. And we've been holding a high elevation in postgraduate studies, but that's starting to fall to a certain extent. So we've got to get our act together back on that and get education to where it should be. But that's the greatest concern I have right now, is are we going to be able to produce the type of work that we need and the type of education? STEM education, you know, we're way behind. And my God, China's producing people quicker and faster than anyone.
One last question right here in the middle.
What is the likelihood that neither Trump nor Biden will be on the final primary? Because it seems like Trump is having a lot of legal issues. Biden, when you look at what the House Oversight Committee is doing, is going to have a lot. Not many people are in favor of Kamala Harris. So what is the likelihood that these political parties will convince them to drop out?
Right now, I don't see that, and the reason I don't, because they have such a following. I think on the Democrat side, they're basically saying Joe Biden can save the country if he beats Donald Trump. Donald Trump has such a grip on the majority of the Republican Party right now, or that people that are registered Republican, that they're saying that we can't beat him, so we might as well see if we can work with him. And unless the legal challenges of both of them changes their desire to continue on, and these are both strong-willed people, will they step aside on their own volition? I don't think so. Will someone say, I think it's better for you and for your family and those close to you if you would step aside? You know, if there was a strong candidate, I think you'll see this in some of the debates. Someone said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll pardon both of them. I'll just have a blanket pardon on both of them, and peace come upon us, and let's move on. You're going to see someone, I think, come with this.
Who might that be?
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you so much, Senator, for coming to Texas. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. The council loves the Mike Rawlings Endowed Lecture Series. Thank you so much. It's made possible by our founding donors and supporters. Thank you very much again. Mike, always so good. And Senator, welcome to Dallas. Thank you very much for this.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.